Welcome to the BJ Show. Let's rock and roll. Rock and roll. Come on, everybody. Let's lose control. Rant on never wants to follow. Yeah, ready for the ride. It's the BJ Show. BJ Show.
BJ Show for Wednesday, Hump Day, the 23rd, 24th, 25th of June. Is that right, John? 25th?
Yeah, only 6 months until Christmas, Brad.
You know, I never thought about
you're
that.
on Facebook Marketplace looking to buy yourself a new lawnmower.
In the old days, I would be playing Christmas music because that was usually my deal when I worked the music shift on the old KSOQ on this very station. I would always play Christmas music on the 25th of every month. It's only 6 months till Christmas, and we'd play some Christmas music.
What a capitalist you are, Brad.
Yes,
what a carny.
I'm a capitalist. John, you have coined a phrase that I use all the time, and I'm telling you that if Donald Trump would have me as an advisor, he wouldn't be in the somewhat pickle he's in right now. And you know what that phrase is that you coined in an acronym?
I have no idea, Brad. What is it?
UPOD. And what does UPOD stand for, John?
It is a decades-old concept that I did not come up with, nor did you, and it's called under promise and over deliver.
Here's how Donald Trump has got himself in a pickle. And by the way, we'll get to John's top three here just momentarily. Instead of coming on TV and saying, we obliterated those Iranian nuclear bomb sites, he should come on and said, you know what? We think we did some damage to them, and we think we've set them back a period of time, but time will tell as we do our reconnaissance. But instead, he's got to come on. We obliterated them, which the CNN people are all, if you read the CNN this morning and MSNBC, they're all like, there's no damage done to the Iranians. It was a pinprick on a tick on a dog's butt. It didn't do anything. Under promise, over deliver. He should have just said, hey, we caused them some damage. We'll find out just how much. Right, John?
I don't disagree with you here, Brad. I think that, but Trump's whole brand is blustery. By the way, pinprick is what people used to call you when you'd show up with a notepad and a writing utensil at press conferences. Oh, there's the pinprick.
Thanks, John. John Combest is this amazing guy, and he is truly amazing. There's only one John Combest in the world. Thank God for that. But he puts together this amazing website every single day for 23 plus years. What he does is he gathers all these important stories that you should know about from the state of Missouri. He's like the Matt Drudge of Missouri. He puts these together on his website, johncombest.com, COMBEST. Put a John in front of .com in the back. You got johncombest.com. Now, what we do is we start off with the top three. So John has culled, I've always liked that word, culled, C-U-L-L-E-D, through all
it reminds me of bass fishing. If you got like a 6-fish limit, you take out the one. If you catch a big lunker, you take out the smallest one and you put your lunker in, you know?
I'm not going to touch that. There's a couple lines I could use, but I'm not
Brad,
going
I know you like to look at other men's lunkers, but I interrupted you. Go ahead, Brad.
I'm not going there. John starts off the show with this guy. What's your name, sir?
I'm Casey Kasem.
And what do you do?
Now on with the countdown.
And we start off with...
In third place...
Brad, I do appreciate the high praise of my website that you just gave. On my website in the morning, as you've established, I don't link to government websites, except when I do. And I certainly don't link to city or municipal or county news. We have 114 counties in Missouri, plus the city of St. Louis. I'm not going to dilute my website with a bunch of county stories. No. But on occasion, I must link to a story about a county or a city if it involves state intervention. I think you know where I'm going with this, Brad. Attorney General Andrew Bailey has set his sights, to use a Brad Hildebrand phrase, once again on the city of St. Louis, this time a sheriff named Alfred Montgomery. Let's go straight into what AG Bailey said. This is brought to us by the St. Louis Post-Dispatch and Austin Hugelet. Quote, throughout Montgomery's tenure, the sheriff's office has been repeatedly accused of 1, financial mismanagement, 2, workplace misconduct, and abuse of authority, and 3, a failure to perform his duties. Taken together, these issues reflect a systemic failure to uphold the integrity of the office and have severely undermined public trust in law enforcement operations within the city. Now, for his part, Sheriff Montgomery says, "Nuh-uh, I ain't leaving," and turned around at a press conference and walked away. According to Mr. Hughley, Montgomery said, quote, "I will not resign. I have not been found guilty of any wrongdoing." And then, as Mr. Hughley reports, Montgomery then turned around and went back into his office without answering questions. Austin quotes a guy named retired Judge David Mason. They have a picture of him here. He's a pretty generic, just big fat guy. He says, "The sheriff is smart enough to know that he cannot submit to a deposition by news media." So, AG Andrew Bailey, as he did 2 years ago, Brad, you'll recall that he gave Kim Gardner essentially an ultimatum, which was step down now or we're going to come after you. 2 years later, he's putting the heat on Sheriff Montgomery. Brad, I presume, because you pay such close attention to local news, that you've been following this. And remind us, if you would, Brad, there's a pair of golden dice involved here somewhere,
yes,
right?
And a pair of handcuffs as well, too. Do you know the handcuffs?
Oh, Brad, kinky for 7 a.m.
Okay, first off, do I know about this? I'm looking at Brad's top 3 list, and number 1 is St. Louis Sheriff and Andrew Bailey. So I'm going to have to come up with.
Maybe we could save some of your analysis for B Block, Brad. We don't have to go too deep into it now.
Is that okay with you, John?
Yeah, that's great with me.
Okay, because there's a couple different things that I have to say about this that maybe haven't been said, or maybe only weirdos like me can say. So I will take your fine. If we were in the Missouri Senate or the Missouri House, we'd say, "I appreciate the fine gentleman from Chesterfield for acquiescing to my B blocks. We can further investigate this story." Does that sound like somebody would have said in the floor of the Jefferson City?
I would, and then my rejoinder would be, as my compatriot, Mr. Hildebrand, the fine senator from God knows where, is actually, he and I are both actually representatives of Spanish Lake. We will sit on the curb and sip a 40 OZ of non-alcoholic malt liquor and hash it out ourselves.
John, you know what? There are times when, you can be a jerk to me, but there are other times when I have so much fun with you. Can I just tell you that?
Oh, Brad. Let's try to do a little bit more of the jerk stuff and less of the fun, okay?
Yes, because of the fact that you always you are a comedian because it's like the Jerry Seinfeld thing, the observational comedy of sitting on the curb, tilting back a 40-ounce big boy or tall boy. You know what I'm saying? There's something about that. I'm sorry. It just...
We lived around it for many years, didn't we, Brad?
Yes, no kidding. Okay, here we go. Number 2.
Up a notch to number 2.
Hey, speaking of vices, I want you to set down your 40 OZ on the curb and get those dice out, Brad. We'll shoot a little skelly. Maybe we'll shoot a little craps on the curb. No, wait a minute. Let's just get out our smartphones and open up FanDuel or open up DraftKings or maybe Underdog Sports for a little fantasy action. This story is brought to us by Salid Kern, and I might be mispronouncing that name. It's Ceilidh, Salid Kern, and she's with The Beacon. Now, you'll recall The Beacon used to be the name of a publication here, an online publication in St. Louis, which was gobbled up by St. Louis Public Radio. But there's a Beacon that exists in Kansas and Kansas City. And this woman writes for them. The headline, Brad, you've seen this before because I saw it on one of your news scraping websites. Gas on a fire. As Missouri prepares for sports betting, bankruptcies and suicides could rise, experts warn. Now, Brad, I'll cut to the punchline here. When people say advocates are encouraging or advocates are warning, there's always a request for more money involved. That's a good shorthand way to look at mainstream Missouri or progressive Missouri news coverage. When people say experts warn, advocates claim, there's always going to be a money involved, and it's going to involve Brad Hildebrand and John Combest and others paying more money. So we'll cut to the chase. Some advocates are saying that Missouri will need to spend more money on compulsive gambling addiction treatment. Now, just because these folks are advocates and just because they want more government money doesn't mean they're necessarily wrong, Brad. And this is a topic that for example, Secretary of State Denny Hoskins last year, when he was still in the state Senate, was warning about. If and when we expand sports gaming, which will take place on December 1st this year, 2025, we will inevitably see a rise in folks that are dealing with gambling addiction. And in this regard, it might go from being addicted to betting at a casino or an online sports book to doing it right here in the state of Missouri. So this piece from the Beacon goes into exactly how that compulsive gambling money will be spent, like money that allocated for compulsive gambling. And this woman does a good job of laying out there's a couple different funds. And the short of it, Brad, is that there's one that already exists for gambling. You know, like you remember hearing for years the call 1-800-BETS-OFF if you have a problem with compulsive gambling. And when we passed sports betting last year, a brand new fund was set up. So this woman goes through and talks about the fact that, you know, money will be set aside to help folks who have a problem. But there was an interesting quote from one of the advocates who said that as it stands today, you pretty much just have a bunch of college kids answering a helpline. So here's her quote. In Missouri, it's a gentleman's quote. In Missouri, we have a hotline paid for by the gaming industry that's answered by college students. All they try to do is make referrals. So this guy's saying, look, if we're going to set this up, let's actually hire some real professionals who are trained specifically in compulsive sports betting and not just addiction experts.
John, I'm just going to throw my top three away this morning because my number two, looking at my sheet, is sports betting downside. So you and I are like right on track so far.
Well, why don't we roll, why don't we roll into story number one? Because I don't know if you're going to have number one on there, Brad.
Well, my number one was St. Louis Sheriff and Andrew Bailey, but so it can't be the same number one. Okay, let's go to number one.
And for those who are listening via podcast or on YouTube, if you go to June 25th and you go to B Block, you can hear us discuss the Sheriff and Missouri sports gaming in more detail.
And by the way, a little promo here. Do you know what's going to happen in C Block?
You are going to annoy someone by making a phone call.
I got a text from Bill Eigel who said, I saw you called me this morning. Would you want me to be in your show? And I said, yes, tomorrow morning at 7:45. So we'll have
Wow, that's fantastic, yeah. Brett. And you're going to compliment him on how good his hair looks in this humidity, right?
Yes, among other things. Okay.
The number one.
You know, Missouri made national news last weekend because those B-2 bombers that either obliterated or caused a pinprick and Iran took off from right here in Missouri. That's right, Whiteman Air Force Base. To quote women from Spanish Lake, Brad, why's it gotta be white? Okay. Whiteman Air Force Base is the only Air Force base that has the B-2 bombers. Now, Pete Hegseth and others have been mentioning Missouri so much that if you're a little bit of a nervous Nelly, if you're a little nervous in the service, you might worry, whoa, are the bad guys going to target Missouri now? Are Missourians in danger? Well, rest easy, Brad. I have a headline from KOMU. You know, that's the station in Columbia where they get a bunch of journalism students to look pretty and read a teleprompter. Here's the headline. MU military expert. Missourians should not worry about threat to Whiteman Air Force Base. No, even though Pete Hegseth and others have been touting Missouri and the fact that Missouri played such an important role, it's not likely that the bad guys are going to come in and attack Missouri. Now, the folks at KOMU reached out to a professor, an MU Defense and Strategic Studies professor. His name is Stephen Quackenbush. By the way, Brad, if any of your lady friends have a Quackenbush, they should see their gynecologist right away. That's a serious condition. Mr. Quackenbush says that would be an important target, being Whiteman, but I don't think that Iran has a realistic means of targeting Whiteman. You know, some kind of terrorist attack would be the means, but, you know, they have security forces that should be able to deal with the threat. And I guess what Mr. Quackenbush is saying is there's no way that Iran could come here at least with fighter jets, and make it all the way to Missouri without getting knocked down. And then, Brad, I thought one interesting tidbit from this story, when they quoted Mr. Quackenbush, was that the fighters on the way to Iran were fueled mid-flight. And it was the longest flight by B-2 bombers since 2001 in the attack on Afghanistan. So those are some factoids for you, Brad, involving Whiteman Air Force Base. And I think you can rest easy at night because I don't think Iran is going to fly here and come after Whiteman.
John, I think that's probably Dr. Quackenbush. It
is probably Dr. Quackenbush. That's right.
And I say he's full of it because you know why?
Oh, why is that, Brad? Is it because you could launch a terror attack without airplanes?
John, look what the Ukraine did to Russia.
Did they ever have drones, Brad?
Yeah. See, are you making fun of me, John?
I am making fun of you. Yeah. Brad, do you know that you could go to Home Depot and purchase it? Here's what they should do. You could go to Home Depot and buy a bunch of them off the shelf.
John, I talk all the time about asymmetrical
Do
warfare.
You?
Yes, asymmetrical warfare. Okay.
No way. What is that, Brad?
If Dr. Quackenbush is saying, there's no way Iraq can attack Whiteman Air Force Base, look at what the Ukrainians did. See, this is interesting. I have heard military experts talk about the fact that the Ukrainians are rewriting the rule book of warfare because, remember this, when the whole thing started, when Russia started amassing troops on the Ukrainian border, everybody go, oh my God, it's 2 days before Kiev falls. Okay, we 2+ years now? And the reason for that is it's the classic example of asymmetrical warfare. The Ukrainians don't have a navy, but yet they've sunk a bunch of the Russian ships, okay? The Ukrainians have a ragtag Air Force. Matter of fact, up until the time we gave them some F-16s, they got some throwback MiGs that were left over from the Russians, and yet the Ukrainians have been kicking butt on the Russians, okay? And what did they do? They had this unbelievable attack where, 5 different bases, Air Force bases? They drove these trucks with looked like flatbed trucks with containers on the back.
What were they equipped with on the back of them, Brad?
Well, they had these drones in these cages, and they open up the cages and the drones attack the planes. I mean, I've been to Whiteman Air Force Base. I've never been in it, but I've been right by it on the outskirts. I mean, and I'm not trying to give anybody ideas, but for Dr. Quackenbush to say, there's no way they're going to attack us, it's asymmetrical warfare, dude. Get your head out of your butt. Get your head out of your butt from the way that warfare has been done for years, and look at how the United States has been whacked in the butt by asymmetrical warfare. The USS Cole was almost sunk by a dinghy with 2 dudes on it with a couple of Johnson outboards and a bunch of explosives that probably cost them $20,000. They almost sunk a $1 billion United States warship with a dinghy with 2 Johnsons and 2 dudes and some ammonia, whatever this stuff is that blows up and stuff like that. Time after time, we get our butts kicked by the asymmetrical warfare. And I go back to the Revolutionary War, where the Brits lined up in their red coats. Why'd they call them red coats? Because they had on red coats. They lined up in nice little perfect lines, and they advanced in step. And the Americans were up in trees and behind rocks and picking them off one by one. Asymmetrical warfare.
That's right. And for folks who haven't heard this before, you can go to our June 2nd episode. That's right. It was less than 3 weeks ago, or only 3 weeks ago.
God.
And in B block, Brad, according to my notes, Brad had a 14-minute, I labeled it Brad's monthly speech on asymmetrical warfare. And then it was followed by what I titled GI Brad Knows Best, which was your recommendation for the U.S. using drones, Brad?
John, maybe, and I have to tell you something, and I can't really reveal this right now. I am involved in asymmetrical warfare right now. And
does it involve a strongly worded letter to a religious station?
Well, let me put it to you this way.
Yes, it does.
After me doing my research last night, not only is it strongly worded, there is some legal action that could be taken against a law firm for perjury. How about that, John?
Yikes.
Yes.
Boy, this is the kind of thing that I want to go to Mizzou and I want to have Mr. Quackenbush going on this. By the way, for ladies who are listening,
here we go.
I shouldn't say for ladies. I should say for men. If your lady friends are dealing with Quackenbush, you might want to just adjust the pelvis a little bit. You know what I'm saying, Brad?
John,
if it's quacking up against the wall, let her lean over the ottoman. You know what I'm saying? Just tilt the pelvis.
You hear names in public from time to time, and I hear these names. I think to myself, if I were that person, I would change my name. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it says the inappropriately named Steve Butts from the Mark Reardon Roundtable. Yes.
There's a couple others that I would just say, I don't care about my relatives. It's just like my next door neighbors when I grew up were from Greece, and they were called themselves, their name was the Vlantons. And one day I was kidding with Eli, who was a couple years older than me, but he was my friend, lived next door. And I said to him, Vlantinopolis. And he looks at me and he goes, how did you know our real name? They just chopped the opolis off the end, and they were the Vlantons, and their real name was Vlantinopolis, and they essentially sort of, I guess, Americanized their name. A lot of people did that. I mean, that the history of the immigration in the United States is rife with people who, when they came to the United States, they said, we want to assimilate, and we may be blah 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 blah, blah, in whatever country we came from, but here we're Joe Smith. Get what I'm saying, John?
I get it. That's why you changed the U in Combest to an O in Combest.
I didn't do that. You did. Okay. My top 3, or what's left of it, is coming up next.